General Motors, one of the world's biggest car companies, is getting access with all their EVs. They were an EV pioneer in some ways with the EV1 25 years ago. Then they crushed them all. But they did come out with the Bolt in 2015, which was the first affordable long-range EV just prior to the Model 3 a year or two later.
Yep. And the Chevy Volt before that, which was a very decent plug-in hybrid.
Yeah, with lots of range and an engine for a backup. So there's lots of Bolts out there, right? There's lots of them around, and now they have access to the network, although Bolts are a 2015 technology and they charge slow. And I have one, by the way, if you didn't know that.
Yeah, and this is access to the Tesla network, just to be clear. Tesla is slowly opening it up, kind of manufacturer by manufacturer.
Right, and Ford was first, and then Rivian, and now GM. And those two manufacturers sent out free adapters because it's a different plug standard in North America, where the Tesla has a very elegant, it's almost like my one in the driveway, you know, and to get superpower. Like, literally, I'm the only one in the family who can handle the supercharging cable because it's so heavy and awkward that you need a great, and I don't know that I would if I was 90 years old, you know, like, it's really, I got to get you out to try one because you'll never know if you don't do that once because it's really crazy. And yeah, so the automakers are virtually all going to the Tesla standard. Tesla has opened it up so that they can do that. And we'll start seeing it next year and the year after that with cars actually having it built in. So they'll have access to the Supercharger network, which doubles the amount of Supercharger access virtually. And it's a much better thing, but now we need an adapter. So unfortunately, GM is making us pay for the adapters, which is not great for James. I'm not happy about that. I thought, well, if the other people do it, you know, it would be something that GM could do, but they look kind of bad doing it this way. The announcement comes more than 15 months after GM first announced it would adopt Tesla's EV charging plug for its vehicles. The automaker had originally said it expected to complete the software coordination with Tesla by early spring 2024, but production bottlenecks and layoffs at Tesla have delayed the process. Nearly 18,000 Tesla Superchargers in North America now are accessible by people like me with a GM vehicle, EV. GM customers have to pay for their adapter, $310 Canadian, $225 United States currency, which is a chunk. It's a chunk. It's probably more than what the thing is worth, which some people are kind of mad about. Yeah, I cannot justify it myself. I'm going to explain why. Tom Malogney of State of Charge argued maybe they shouldn't be free because not everyone wants one. You know, some people just use their EVs for the city, so why have that bottleneck of giving, you know, waiting, everyone else waiting? So that slows things down. There's a possibility of waste there too. Yeah, so maybe he suggested if it was subsidized, I'd gladly pay $100 for it, but that's a bit much for my case scenario. If anyone has one from Ford and Rivian that they're not using, contact my agent, and that would be Brian. I don't know. Just contact him. I'll explain why I may not need one. This is my analysis, Brian. I've done some analysis on how useful this is in our charging desert of the prairies of Canada. You might have a charging desert where you are. Chances are you do somewhere near. With us, the faster charging availability that we have of non-Tesla networks are often broken. In fact, we did an analysis that 9 out of 10 of them were broken or in questionable repair. Sometimes they work, but they only give out a little bit of juice, you know, a tenth of what they can give out, supposedly. So I have the Bolt EV from GM. It is, like I say, 2015 technology. It's discontinued. They are bringing it back, hopefully with faster charging. But mine only does 55 kilowatts. So if I wanted to charge my car from 0 to 100 at one of these superchargers, so it would probably take like 2 hours. If I went from 0 to 80%, it would probably take about an hour and 50 minutes, which is a long time. But usually I spend around 50 minutes to an hour charging a major charge when I'm on a road trip, by the way. So I'm never empty and I'm never necessarily going to fill it further than I need. So I did an analysis with a better route planner without live weather. No, I did use live weather because I still have access to that account. So it does have live weather. It's cool here now and windy when I did this test yesterday. Okay, so that adds a little bit of challenge to it. So it's kind of like consider it, you know, not ideal, but not really unideal, kind of somewhere in the middle. And basically, if I use the Tesla network to Calgary, it would be the same as if I didn't, Brian. So it would be exactly the same because my vehicle charges slowly. So the advantage comes when you have a faster charging EV, which is basically everyone else. Some of them charge a lot faster than others. Some are like 3 times the peak of me. Sometimes they are 5 times like yourself. Like the peak charging rate is about 250 instead of 150 or 50 in my case. So Tom Maloney did test the Bolt on the network, and it charges the same as anywhere else. It peaks at 54, has the same sort of charging curve. Nothing is different on the Tesla network. There's no risk of the adapter getting hot because it can handle a lot more than what the Bolt does. So, with the Tesla version 3 superchargers, they are about 250. Is that right? Something like that?
Yeah, 255 is the most I've gotten.
And CCS, that's the other version that's not Tesla with the big awkward adapters. They are usually 50, 100, and 150, and sometimes 350 at Petro-Canada here, which is a gas station company, and Electrify Canada / Electrify America, which go to 350. But there's not those Electrify Canada stations outside my city. They're basically not along the highway. They're in the cities right now, and it would be nice if they weren't. So in the country, in the small cities, the small towns, you got to charge with other places. So the place that I could use it the most would be on the road to Saskatoon, where my son goes to school, and it's a common city to go to here. That's a V2 supercharger that I'm told, and it is sure enough not showing up on as a viable charger for my GM vehicle in the Tesla app. And by the way, GM wants you to use the GM app, which is clunky and stupid and idiotic at best. It is many of these apps are dumb, and that's why Tesla has an advantage. But you can use the Tesla app. If you make an account with Tesla, you don't have to have a Tesla. I have an account with Tesla, and I added my credit card info to them, and you can easily just charge. And it's faster. It takes 4 seconds with a Tesla, 6 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's like 26 seconds with a GM. So why would you do it? That just GM gets a cut, or they don't have to, you don't have to worry about you looking at another automaker's brand name while you're doing it. But definitely, if you're out there and you have a GM vehicle, use the Tesla app if you don't already know that. So I tested out the Mustang Mach-E, which is a very common car from Ford. I did the long-range version. This is my day trip from here to Calgary that I always use as a test through the charging desert. It was 54 minutes of charging if you use the Supercharger network, and over an hour longer, though, if you had to use the other network. That is what is currently online at this moment in time. It would take an hour longer, or basically twice as long charging. So that is really significant. Doesn't do anything for me in my Bolt, but for most cars like the Mach-E, it is a huge advantage, Brian, and you have to pay a lot more on the Tesla network, but I'm guessing that people would rather spend, 54 minutes instead of an hour and 54 minutes charging if they had that option. Now, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, I have a friend who has one of those, and it is the rear-wheel drive long range that I tested. It was 39 minutes using the Supercharger network, and an hour and 16 minutes not using it. That's 37 minutes longer, also twice as long. By the way, Hyundai does not have access to the Supercharger network yet, but the app is letting you test that out to see how it would be in advance. The Ford F-150 Lightning extended range pickup truck, I don't think that's quite the longest range that I tested out. It was an hour and 12 minutes on the Supercharger network and an hour and 55 on without it. So not as extreme, but still significant enough to make a huge difference. The Rivian R1T was 22 minutes on the Tesla network. It charges much faster than the Ford, more efficient than the Ford, and an hour and 17. If the Petro-Canada chargers are broken, which they usually are, it would be 22 minutes to an hour, like an hour longer, like significantly longer. Ridiculous, like 6 times longer almost, like many, many, many times longer. And I've got a link to the State of Charge video that Tom Maloney did on the network. He got early access by GM, and there was some false information out there. If you have a Bolt EV, you do not need to take it to the dealership for a software update. There was a miscommunication by GM. There was some question about 19 and 20 models, but apparently everyone out there who's testing it says no problem. So it seems like no Bolt needs a software update and I just wanted to mention that. Let's get into the mailbag. Go ahead.
So you probably won't take a road trip until next summer. So I imagine what you'll have to do is, again, take a look at the charging desert and see how much it's improved, because peace of mind would be the reason for you to get
absolutely.
the adapter. If, it still looks like the non-Tesla chargers look kind of dodgy next summer.
If I had my druthers and I had a fat bank account, I would definitely get an adapter right away, and I would use it as a backup, but I wouldn't use it anyway because it doesn't charge faster for me, and it costs twice as much, or 50% more, or something like that. So there'd be no incentive for me to do that because of the cost.
The Clean Energy Show.